Hey everyone, it's Tara. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with my August wrap up. August was not the best month I've had in 2020, but I also don't think it was the worst. Like, despite everything that I had going on in my personal life, like being in a slump, not feeling great all the time, all of that jazz, like, all things considered, I ended up still reading 7 books, and all of those books I rated 4 stars or higher. So while I didn't read a ton of books, I did thoroughly enjoy everything that I read, which to me is more important. I'd rather read like 2 books that I loved than 20 books that were just okay. So overall, I'm pretty pleased, especially considering that I was in a slump. 7 books was pretty good. So let's get into what I read. So I'm going to talk about 2 books together. The first book I read and one of the last books I read this month, just because they're part of the same series. So that would be Cinnamon Roll Murder, which I've already returned to the library, and Red Velvet Cupcake Murder, both by Joanne Fluke, both part of the Hannah Swanson series. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that I really love the Hannah Swanson series. These books fall like in the middle of the series, so I can't really go into too much detail because there are some like storylines that continue on from like throughout the series, while each individual book has its own murder case. The thing that I liked in both Cinnamon Roll Murder and Red Velvet Cupcake Murder is this Red Velvet Cupcake Murder, Cinnamon Roll Murder, and Devil's Food Cake Murder, which I read last month, kind of have like an overarching storyline in Hannah's personal life. And so Red Velvet Cupcake Murder kind of wraps up that like 3-book like plot line. And I liked that. I liked having the same like consistent like problem in Hannah's life over 3 books. So while you could read each book individually, it was nice like going from book to book and seeing how it all concluded. Cinnamon Roll Murder, the main like murder victim is a member of a band that's like visiting in town. There's a car accident or a bus crash. Their tour bus like is in a car accident. The driver ends up dead, and one of the band members ends up dead, and they're trying to decide if that was a result of the accident or something else. So that's the kind of the basic plot of Cinnamon Roll Murder. Then in Red Velvet Cupcake Murder, I liked this one because while there is a murder in this, there's also an attempted murder with the victim survives and is available as a witness. So that was an interesting little like twist. We haven't seen that yet in one of the Hannah Swanson books. If you watch my reading vlog, you will know that there's something that Joanne Fluke is doing that is starting to bug me just a little bit, in that she is starting to like over-explain and add like unnecessary like facts and information that aren't relevant to the story, just to kind of like throw in these random facts. And it kind of is starting to feel like filler a little bit. However, that doesn't bother me too much, and I really enjoy the series and Hannah and Lake Eden and all of that more than that bothers me. So I'm able to kind of ignore it, but I did only give Red Velvet Cupcake Murder 4 stars, while I gave Cinnamon Roll Murder 4.5 stars. So it has like kind of bumped my rating down just a little bit, but I'm still really enjoying the series. The second book I read was Beyond a Reasonable Stout by Ellie Alexander. I am loving the Sloane Krause series. I gave this 5 stars. I just love Sloane Krause as a character. I love that between like book to book, it only seems like a few weeks are passing. So like there's not a lot of time between the books in like the world in Leavenworth. In this book, there's like an election, like a town councilman election going on, and the current town councilman is running for re-election and is running on a platform of making the town dry, which is really not good because this town's livelihood relies on the beer and the beer making business. There's lots of breweries in town. There's lots of hotels and things like that that rely on the tourism that comes because of all the breweries and it being like basically like a German like beer city in Washington state. So when he starts running on this platform, a lot of members in town get very upset. And when that town councilman ends up dead, there's many people who could have done it because he was pissing a lot of people off because of this platform. So it was interesting just kind of seeing like with there being so many possible like suspects who actually did it. As opposed to Hannah Swanson in the Hannah Swanson series, Sloane Krause doesn't seem to get in the way of the like official investigation in the town. Like Hannah tends to just insert herself into the investigation, like does her own thing, whether Mike and Bill and the police force want her to or not. Sloane Krause will like do some like digging, but also works like really closely with the police department and doesn't overstep her boundaries. So just like having the difference between Hannah and Sloane is nice, especially when you're reading the two cozies like back to back. So really loving Sloane. I'm excited to continue the series. Book 4 comes out later this year, so I have it on pre-order. I'm ready to go. Book 3 of August was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I gave this 4 stars. It was really good. I enjoyed it. It wasn't like my favorite thriller of all times. This follows like a wedding party and a couple of the guests as they are like arriving at and attending this like really exclusive wedding on this remote island like off the coast of Ireland. Yeah. Without giving too much away, some of the things that I loved. I loved that there were lots of little like twists and like connections that I didn't see coming. Like really little things that it's like, oh, I was not expecting that. Like I loved that. I love that you don't even know who dies right away. Like even the murderer, like the murder victim is left a surprise until I don't remember exactly halfway, if not more through the book, is when you even find out who actually is dead. This does have 2 different like timelines. You have like leading up to the death and then like the events after the death. So you kind of swap between those 2, even though it's like just a matter of days, you like swap between those 2 timelines. Yeah, and it's told, I think there's like 5, maybe 6 different perspectives. So really enjoyed it. Not my favorite thriller ever, but a really solid one. It was a fun read. Then I read Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. I did this as a buddy read with John, and I gave it 4.5 stars. This, like, I don't know what I was expecting, but I don't think it was what this book was, but I really, really, really enjoyed it. Like, I was a little bit hesitant because sci-fi is not, like, a genre I read very often. I don't read a ton of YA, and I haven't read a ton of Brandon Sanderson. I've only read the Mistborn trilogy. So I was a little bit like, how's this going to go? Like this, like Brandon Sanderson's so well loved and Skyward is so well loved. Like, am I going to love it? Am I going to hate it? I don't know. I ended up really, really, really enjoying it. If you don't know what this is about, which I feel like I'm the last person on BookTube to read this, so you probably do. This follows Spensa, who is in like flight school training. Like she's wanted to be a pilot her entire life. And she's kind of living in her dad's shadow, but not in a good way, because her dad has given her family this reputation because he deserted his like flight troop and was killed for being a coward. And so Spence's trying to like basically redeem her family and pursue her dream of wanting to be a pilot. And it's kind of an uphill battle because the like commander of the flight school is basically like bound and determined to not let Spencer succeed because she doesn't want to risk, Ironsides, the commander, doesn't want to risk having another deserter in her like troop of pilots. So it's a good time. I really enjoyed it and I cannot wait to read the sequel. John and I need to get it here so that we can buddy read that. Book 6, that's I think what we're on right now, is the only audiobook I listened to in August. And I listened to it like the last week of August. I just wasn't feeling like listening to audiobooks, I guess, until the end of the month. And that was 9 Perfect Strangers by Liane Moriarty. I gave this 4.5 stars. Liane Moriarty has become a really solid like author that I really enjoy reading. I love listening to her books on audio. I've mentioned this a couple of times. Like, I love the Australian narrators. I love listening to the books and like the accent that like Liane would have and like what she hears in her head, even though she probably doesn't hear it in an accent. But I like listening to an Australian person tell me the stories because I love the Australian accent. This one, it could have been 5 stars, except, again, if you watch my vlog, you kind of know this. The first, I don't know, third or so of the book, I was like, if things don't start like coming together and these 9 perfect strangers don't like either end up all being connected like previously, like prior to the events of this, like prior to them all coming to this health resort, or if something doesn't happen, like I don't want to read about 9 strangers, like, but man, it ends up exceeding my expectations. Like things happen and wow, I ended up really enjoying it. So if you go to read this and it's like starting off a bit slow for you, keep plugging along because it's definitely worth it. So this follows 9 strangers who have all enrolled for like a 10-day, I was going to say week, but 10-day retreat at this health resort called Tranquillum House. And this resort has some unconventional methods. Some people went there for weight loss, some people went for like counseling, some people went just for like to better their life in general. So kind of based on why you went, like why you're attending the resort and what you're hoping to get out of it, you have some different like methods and classes and stuff, but they're not exactly standard. The events that transpire, it was quite a ride. It was very enjoyable and I'm glad that I stuck it out. I contemplated DNFing it, but I didn't because, you know, again, the Australian narrator is fun to listen to and I'm glad that I stuck it out. I really enjoyed it. And then last but definitely not least, the last book I read in August was Always and Forever Laura Jean by Jenny Han. This is the 3rd and final book in the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy. I gave this 4 stars. This book and the series in general is just like super nostalgic for me. It reminds me of high school so much, and it's not that Laura Jean and I had a ton of stuff in common because we didn't, but just like the overall like mood and how she like feels about like high school and like then going into college, all of that was very like relatable to me. And it just like her in this book, it's kind of like her last like semester of high school and her trying to like figure out like waiting to get accepted into college, trying to make a decision as to what college to go to, like making decisions about Peter. Like she has all of these really big life decisions and she's struggling with like how to make these decisions and like make them wisely in a way that she's not going to regret. And that is like nostalgic to me because, you know, I remember being a senior in high school and not knowing if I was making the right decision because there's no way for you to know. So it just brought back all of those memories and like feelings and of like anxiety and nerves and like, oh my gosh, is this the right path for me? So really enjoyed it. I think it's a really solid series. I thought this was a really solid book. I am glad that I read it. It definitely, to me, lives up to the hype that a lot of people gave it. So good, solid conclusion to the series, in my opinion. So there you have it, the 7 books I read in August. Let me know down below how your August ended. What did you end up reading? If you have a wrap up, leave it down below so I can watch, because I love seeing what people read month to month. Anyways, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy reading. Bye!